The base has dropped on the CONCACAF Champions League. It starts tonight. The CCL fever is running rampant all over North and Central America, as well as the Caribbean. 3 matches tonight to get the thing started. Atlanta United has to wait till the final match of the round of 16 on Thursday to hit the field, but lots of CONCACAF Champions League to digest today. We'll get you ready for those games. We'll look ahead to tomorrow as well. We'll get you ready for Atlanta United on Thursday. We'll also have Joe Patrick here to help us out from Dirty South Soccer, but you're stuck with Jason and John this morning. What's up? Hola.
Hola. I have heard of this Joe Patrick.
I have heard of him as well, and he's got an update for us, hopefully, from his website over at Dirty South Soccer about Darlington Nagbe. Multiple folks yesterday, kind of all close to the same time, tweeted out that they are hearing from sources that Darlington Nagbe will remain with Atlanta United in the 2019 season. It's great to hear. That's awesome news because we're talking about a player who is a pretty good addition to have. Now the question is, okay, everything is seemingly back to normal, going to move forward. What does the lineup look like? And I'll be really curious to see now with Nagbe back into the fold. One, does it take a little bit of time to get him back into a rhythm with everybody? Not sure exactly how the training schedules work. Look, no manager is going to give you that much detail about, okay, this guy's been training with the first team X amount of minutes. This guy's been training over here X amount of minutes. No, it's not like that. So in matches, we've generally seen the Jeff Lorenowitz, Eric Remedi pairing in the central midfield. Do you change up maybe a little bit of what you were thinking about the central midfield with Nagbe's inclusion? Does it mean one of those two goes to the bench? Does it mean it's a rotation? We're going to have to wait and see. But whenever you have a talented player like a Darlington Nagbe, and especially in a team that wants to dominate possession in the way Atlanta United wants to do in 2019, Darlington Nagbe's a pretty good kind of sort of addition or reinforcement or however you want to look at it. He's going to be in the fold for 2019 according to most sources, John.
And to have that stabilizer, that, when you're changing things up when it comes to philosophy slightly, to have that kind of stabilizer and have that kind of influence in the middle of the pitch. We saw what he's able to do when he came in and have him available in 2018, how integral he was. And it was a quiet confidence. It was a quiet level of success. And, honestly, I think the only thing that was missing from folks who were looking at Darlington Nagbe's performance was, they'd love to see him put the ball in the back of the net occasionally. And that was about it. It was one of the most stabilizing, tremendous efforts that you would ever look at when you're coming to discussing everything that happened in 2018. And for me, the question is, how much of him do we see in this matchup coming up in a couple days' time? And, it's going to be one of the underlying questions. But once again, you look at all of the different competitions, you look at the schedule compression, you look at what's going on. He's going to be needed. Everyone's going to be needed when you're looking 18 to 22 deep. Just when do you see them? And it's going to be a case-by-case basis. But to obviously have someone like a Darlington Nagbe back in the fold, and if every rumor that we're hearing is accurate, to have him back in and a part of everything to defend a crown is huge.
Yeah, it's a big addition. I would not expect the tactical plan that's in place for Thursday to change, and we're assuming, because of the situation that's been ongoing, that he's not going to be in that as a starter on Thursday. But if he's available off the bench as a change of pace, if he's available next week in the second leg, if he's available for that opening league match against DC United, these are definite, bonuses from this. So let's see what Frank DeBoer has to say today. There will be media availability at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground later this morning. Joe Patrick's joining us at 9:30 because he will be headed to said media availability, and we'll hope to get some updates from Joe, from Doug, from Felipe, from the crew who might be on hand in Marietta, because this will definitely be a question. It's been a question for the whole preseason, and it'll be a question now as to, how much information will be given about what the issue was, if that's even relevant at this point. And I think more importantly, going forward, what do things look like? I'm kind of leaning to a work in progress in that regard.
Yeah.
The 3-4-3 does not really lend itself to three central midfielders in this way, unless you're going to kind of go diamond in the middle with the four, and that's very risky. You get rid of wing backs, you tuck everybody inside, you're going to struggle for width. That's not going to work. So does this open up more doors to play a 4-3-3, to play three central midfielders? Possible. Does it open up more doors to play Nagbe in a different role? Could he play as one of the forwards in the 3-4-3? He could. We've seen him in wing roles before. The forward in a 3-4-3 is a little different. That adds to a crowded rotation already. So does he factor in as an 8 next to Remedi or Lorenowitz? Does he factor in as one of the forwards? Does he play a bunch of different positions like he did in Portland? That might be what happens going forward, but it will be, in my opinion, a work in progress, and we'll kind of see how Nagbe's inclusion goes. But as a player, his type, his skill set, I think it's a perfect fit for what Frank DeBoer wants to do in terms of possession, and it's just how do you use him and how in sync is he with the rest of the group?
And I think, obviously, it's going to take a little time, but, that you put that in quotes because – you sit there and it's like, okay, today we're going to have this approach, and then Darlington, we need you to do this. And it's just getting a car that's on a restrictor plate up to full song takes you a couple of laps, but then once it's there, the car's running fine. So that's how I'm viewing this whole thing. It's like, okay, now that everything has been apparently settled, figure things out, and once again, team by team basis, case by case basis. Okay, so this team does this. How does our approach go? And once again, to have a piece that is as versatile as Darlington Nagbe is, in a season that is going to be as challenging on the pitch as it is for various reasons, that to have this piece in is big.
I just saw something on Twitter that I had forgotten about this player. You remember Mix Diskerud?
Yeah.
He where do you think he's playing these days?
Norway?
No.
Saudi Arabia?
Nope.
Jupiter?
Nope. Don't think so.
Where is mixing it up?
Well, he scored 2 goals today in an Asian Champions League qualifier for Ulsan Hyundai FC of South Korea.
No.
Did not know
that was
where Mixed Diskerud was.
Would not have guessed South Korea.
No. All right. Sorry. That was a interesting distraction. The other big news yesterday was down in Orlando. Nani, the deal's done. Nani will be joining Orlando City. 3-year contract, new designated player for the Lions. They are now in the LA Galaxy boat. They have 4 designated players between Nani, Josue Colman, Dom Dwyer, Sasha Kleshin. I don't know all of the contract information, again, because the stuff is not exactly easy to get. But it appears that Orlando is in a situation where they will be able to buy down a contract. That was even mentioned in the article at MLSsoccer.com about what they're going to do with the situation with 4 designated players. Vancouver could be in that situation with Freddie Montero returning as well. I wonder, because we didn't hear anything out of the meetings about the LA Galaxy situation and buying down Giovanni Dos Santos and what that could look like. I wonder if things are moving forward and just nobody told anybody. I'm curious about this. Oh yeah, you can have 4. It's all good. See,
Yeah.
Gwen agrees.
Gwen's making sure that everybody sticks to 3, that everybody's roster compliant.
She's fighting it. She's a stickler for the rules. But yeah, this is I mean, it's not a weird situation for Orlando because you have a chance to go get Nani. You go get Nani, and I'm actually fairly positive about the deal. We don't know the salary number, and that's always a big question with this stuff. The thing we don't know about their designated player situation is we don't know Josue Colman's contract and salary cap hit. He's a young designated player, so he's only on the books for $150,000, but that's not his salary, and that's not what they paid to get him. Sasha Kljestan was on the books last year at 1.1, Dom Dwyer 1.383, so both of those are eligible to be bought down. Dwyer was in a trade, Kljestan was in a trade, so yeah, you've got plenty of flexibility to buy somebody down. So Orlando won't have a problem here, but I'm actually pretty positive about the Nani deal. To be perfectly honest, I think it can be a decent one. Now, the question is, can you get a front 4 or maybe front 5 of Dom Dwyer, Sasha Kljestan, Nani, Josue Colman, and Chris Mueller? Or maybe Mueller instead of Colman, which is what some people have said. And if that's the case, then why did you bring in Colman if you're not going to play him? Can you make that work? Can Nani play on the wing in MLS at his age? I kind of thought he might be a central player, but you have Sasha Kljestan filling that role. You have Josue Colman, who could be filling that role, although he's played out wide a little bit. How the pieces come together in Orlando is the bigger question at this point, and can O'Connor kind of find that right combination to get more service to Dwyer, to unlock him, but also to get the best out of a player like Nani? My only concern is out wide at his age.
Yep. And, you're 32, free transfer from Sporting Lisbon, and Luis Muzzy said dynamic winger, quality abilities to move and cross the ball, impact games, and lead the offensive play. So with that sentence, I'm leaning toward the notion that he's going to be on the outside, and I want to see how this integrates.
So we're a couple years on, but where Nani kind of changed my feeling about it. We watched him at Manchester United, and I think at times it was always a struggle because he was constantly compared to Cristiano Ronaldo, and he's not Cristiano Ronaldo. But that was always the comparison. And it was the last European Championships where Ronaldo was injured, Portugal ends up winning the thing, and Nani, I think, showed a lot more than maybe he ever had. He won me over there, and I think that's probably why I'm still on the positive side of this move. Now, does he still have what he had then? We'll have to see. Does he still have the pace? Probably still has the quick feet. Probably still has the moves. But does he have the same speed? That's something that goes over time. He's had a good year with Sporting. I mean, he's done well. It's not like he's sitting on a bench anywhere. He's been playing. So I'm fascinated by this one. I do have a better feeling about it than most. Maybe I should put on my purple glasses and take another look, or maybe I should put on my 32-year-old wingers in MLS don't usually work out glasses. But I feel like this might be okay. The question is just how O'Connor makes it work, and I think that's the side of it that doesn't get talked about enough in these types of moves. Bringing in a talented player like this is very rarely a bad thing, unless you're a bad locker room guy or something like that. How you use them and how you get the most out of them is down to the manager. Can James O'Connor be that guy? And I don't know. I honestly don't know at this point. It was a really weird second half of the season after he took over last year. When you look at the hot seat rankings in MLS going into 2019, where do you think O'Connor is? I think he's really high, even though he hasn't had a lot of time. And
no doubt.
And I preached patience with him. I think Orlando does need to be patient, but you also have to determine if he can hit that baseline of, is he good enough to grow? And there were questions about that the way they finished last year. I mean, you had to think about it. You had to think, well, maybe he's lost this group. You know, it's a comparison to what happened in Chicago, where you saw a Chicago Fire team play pretty hard down the stretch, especially when they got healthy. And that made you feel better about bringing Veljko Paunovic back. This one, they finished about as bad as you can finish. So, can he turn it around? I don't know. He's got more talent to work with now. I mean, Nani should elevate things, but can you get the best out of him? We'll have to see if James O'Connor can do that.
Well, and I look at, okay, so, and the front office is going to look at it and look at JOC and say, okay, we've given you all of this talent. We think that this talent can get us above where we were last year. And if the coach can't take the talent, integrate it, and figure out what works, what combinations work, and get the desired results the front office have, then it's going to be on JOC before it's going to be on the mix of players. And they're going to want to bring in someone who can handle this group and put them in the right positions so they can succeed. So to your point, I think that James O'Connor is high on the list when it comes to lack of patience from a front office this year. And, you know, if you're investing all of this money in all these guys and you have all this talent up top, how can you integrate these individuals, make them play well with each other, and put the ball in the back of the net? And I look at, and I think about James O'Connor, and all I can think of are the cutaways of what we referred to as JOC phase, and then the post-match interviews where he just looked completely overwhelmed by his surroundings. And you want a guy like that to succeed, considering what he was able to do at Lou City. You want him to succeed at the next level. But with what he was given last year in Orlando City, he looked at times completely overwhelmed by his surroundings. He looked tired. And for me, it looked like it was one of the longest seasons that any coach could have ever had. Now he's got this talent. Can he step up and get these guys to play the way that Orlando's used to playing and get them close to a playoff berth?
We'll see. Let's take a quick break. Come back, talk some CONCACAF Champions League as the tournament gets started tonight. You'll be able to watch on Yahoo Sports, Univision Deportes. It's going to be interesting. There's some really tasty matchups tonight. We'll get into that after a break. Stay with us.
Today's show is presented by Apolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults have unique determination and experience, an ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, February 19th edition. Getting ready for CONCACAF Champions League. Hashtag CCL Fever is here. Get started tonight. Tigres headed to Saprissa. How do you feel about this one? Because I think we always look at Saprissa. We always give this club a lot of respect in this tournament. They've turned it around a little bit after a slow start, but Tigres is flying at the moment. I know you're a big fan of what's going on with Tigres.
Well, yeah, and considering that they had me locked in on Sábado Futbolero and kept an eye on what was going on there. But yeah, I sit there and you look at a talent like Gignac, and you sit there and you just have to tip your hat sometimes to what he does. And since you look at Saprissa, and Saprissa traditionally tough place to play, and we've always, said those kinds of things. This one, it wouldn't surprise me if it was a shared result just because of, difficulty, place to play, all that kind of stuff. But I'm really leaning toward Tigres in a one-goal game. I just think that they are just too talented up top. I mean, they can be had, and Necaxa had them pretty much pinned in for the first 25, 30 minutes or so, and over the weekend. And Tigres looked frustrated. But then when you get, and once again, this is your required viewing, the backheel goal that Gignac scored in the 40th, and then it was on. So I think that if you can frustrate Tigres enough, then you can draw it into a match that you can control. If you let them get momentum, get possession, get opportunities close in, and then you don't mark Gignac, then what happens. It was 2-0. It was 3-1, finished up 3-2. But I just have a feeling, in my rib cage. I've got somebody's index finger poking me in the rib, sitting there saying this could be a draw, but this is one where you don't want to lose it if you're at home. If you can get a result, great. You just don't want to put yourself in a position to really have to fight uphill in the second leg. So my gut tells me it's a draw, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2-1 Tigres.
I think it's going to be a draw. I think if Saprissa loses this, they're out. They're done. They have no shot going to Tigres and getting a win. If they get a draw, maybe you get another draw. You take it into penalties, maybe. It's a veteran team with Saprissa. I mean, the two guys you're looking at are two guys you might know. Christian Bolaños played the last couple of years with Vancouver before going back to Saprissa, Costa Rican national team star. Jairo Arrieta is their leading scorer with 4 this season so far. This is a team that, you look at the numbers, they've scored 20 goals in 10 games, and their leading scorer has 4. They're getting goals from a lot of different faces. That should serve them well here because that Tigres is going to follow the names. They're going to follow Arrieta. They're going to follow Bolaños. They're going to try not to let those two hurt them. It's going to take somebody else stepping up. It's going to take a young player for Saprissa that maybe isn't as well known by Tigres. I think they find it. I think they find a result here and keep hope alive going into the second leg. But Tigres is just too strong and too deep, I think, overall for Saprissa to get through. I don't think they're going to move on to the quarterfinals this time around. Toronto and Houston are your MLS teams in action tonight. Toronto plays at 8 o'clock in Panama against Independiente. Houston plays at 10 o'clock against Guastatoya in Guatemala. We talked about it yesterday. Independiente is unbeaten so far in the current season. They've only played 4 games, a few less than other leagues around Central America. Guastatoya started out really slow, but they've won back-to-back 1-0 matches. Toronto maybe has more question marks than Houston, I think, coming into this. We don't really know what the lineup's going to be for Toronto going into this. We don't know who's going to provide the attacking presence up top. We think we know at least some of the faces that we'll see defensively, but what do you think about Toronto going into this? Are they going to be ready for a team in their first time around in CONCACAF Champions League? I think that helps them a little bit, but a team that's going to be very motivated, for this match, and a team with a striker like Omar Brown who is scoring goals pretty regularly, 9 goals in his last 16 matches.
Yeah, I'm seriously looking at Toronto stubbing their toe in this one. I really am. Just because of all the questions that Toronto FC is posing, motivation on the pitch, players no longer there, and just the free-for-all that the offseason seems to have been on the pitch and off. I think that this is one where they stub their toe and they end up with a loss here. I'm looking probably something 1-0, 2-1, but I'm gonna go again with Toronto FC stubbing their toe.
And I'm glad you put it that way, because it needs to be put that way. And I think maybe a couple of years ago, the idea around MLS going into CONCACAF was, oh, no, these are really, really difficult. No, you can't count on anything in games in Central America. Those times are done. Toronto should go down with whatever they have and win in this match. They still are the favorites. There's a lot of questions, don't get me wrong, and you have to consider those, but Toronto, even depleted, should be a team with more quality than Independiente in Panama.
Mm-hmm.
They should go down and win this match. There's just no question about it. No excuse if they don't. If they struggle here, you have to look at the preparation. You have to look at not getting deals done or deals popping up out of nowhere, seemingly, even though that player was very upset from last year, Sebastian Giovinco. You have to look at these things. Even with all of that, even with the lineup that Toronto should face, they should win this match comfortably. I'm leaning towards you that maybe even if they do get a win or if they get a draw, it's not going to be so comfortable. It has not sounded like a strong preparation in preseason for Toronto, so I'm just kind of waiting to see what they're going to look like, because I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. Houston is the late game today. I feel pretty good about Houston, and I feel like they're a group that understands this competition. They have players with experience in it. They have players with experience playing in Central America. And they're facing a team that is trying to find its confidence. They've won back-to-back matches, but they had not won in their first 6 in the regular season. They're in 8th place in the Guatemalan League. I feel like this is a game that Houston wins, and I don't know, maybe I've got my orange glasses on for this, but I feel like the Dynamo are a team that can make some noise.
Yeah, I do too. And really quickly going back to Toronto FC, Terrence Boyd was asked about the road trip. And he says, I've been to Panama once and it's just hostile. I'm not really looking forward to playing over there, but then again, at the same time, I'm so much looking forward to the first competitive match for Toronto. And apparently game time temperature is going to be in the low 80s.
Yeah, that's going to be something to keep an eye on in these matches, because the vastly different temperatures this time of year in the U.S. and in Canada and in Central America, it will have an effect. I mean, the Kansas City Toluca series could be fascinating with that, because Toluca could be going in on Thursday to play in, I think the prediction is 44 is the high, 29 is the low. It's going to kick off at 7 o'clock Central Time. That's going to be rough. And then Kansas City has to turn around the next week and go to Toluca, which is 8,900 kilometers above sea level.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that will definitely have an effect. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's get Joe Patrick on the line. Let's talk about Dirty South Soccer's update on the Darlington Nagby situation and get Joe's thoughts ahead of CONCACAF Champions League opening up this week. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Soccer Down Here, February 19th edition. It's Tuesday Thoughts edition. So if you have thoughts about CONCACAF Champions League, about Atlanta United, about MLS as a whole, about anything soccer in the United States, North America, Central America, the Caribbean, whatever you want to get into, use the hashtag Tuesday Thoughts. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer joins us now. And, Joe, you guys made people pretty happy yesterday with reports from your guy, Rob Ustry, that Darlington Nagbe appears to be part of Atlanta United for the 2019 season.
Yeah, that is what it sounds like. After, obviously we had the reports earlier this preseason that he wanted to move. That was kind of corroborated by some of the evidence that we saw with him having arrived late to training camp and all that stuff. So we have heard from a reliable source that's close to Darlington Nagbe saying that he expects him to be playing in Atlanta for the 2019 season. And basically saying that a lot of this stuff has been blown out of proportion. That sounds like good news for Atlanta United fans. And obviously we'll get to talk to Frank de Boer today at training to kind of get some more information. Hopefully he's able to shed a little bit of light, or at least kind of, let us know what Nagbe's status is. Probably won't be ready to go for this CONCACAF Champions League game on Thursday, but it'll be interesting to hear kind of what his status is with the team going forward.
And at the same time, seeing where he is in his integration into the new system with Frank de Boer, or does he turn into someone who is going to be used in multiple positions? As you're seeing Nagbe coming online, what are you looking at? Because Jason and I talked about it in the first segment about where Nagbe could be, and it could be a lot of different places. But, in your analysis of Darlington Nagbe and then seeing what Frank de Boer is doing, what are you looking at when it comes to Nagbe in 19?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm that concerned with where he is positionally on the field. I think that most of all, it looks like this is going to be an Atlanta United team that is more concerned with possession of the ball than we saw last season under Tata Martino, where, to be honest, Tata didn't really care to have the ball too often, especially toward the end of the season. And in the playoffs when he went to a back five and just said, let's just defend and hit other teams on the counter because that's when we have space to attack. I think Frank de Boer will be a little different and want to possess the ball a little more. And Darlington Nagbe is obviously the type of player that's instrumental to that kind of thing. We've heard Leandro Gonzalez-Perez basically say that he's the solution to the problems. You just pass him the ball and he can, if you're in trouble, you just give the ball to Darlington Nagbe and he kind of just takes care of the rest somehow. It's almost magic sometimes how he's able to receive and turn and relieve pressure like that. He's kind of a classic, what I would call like a press reliever, where he can break a press with his technique and actually set up opportunities for the team to hit on the counter. So we've seen Atlanta United struggle when they've been pressed. There's a common phrase in soccer saying a pressing team doesn't like to be pressed back. I think that we saw that at times with Atlanta United, and I think that Darlington Nagbe is a very important player to have in the lineup wherever he is, whether it's at central midfield, whether it's maybe a little further up. He can always drop deep, and he's always going to be wanting to come towards the ball and get on the ball and make an impact on the game. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a super important player, and I think he's the kind of player that Atlanta United doesn't really have in the squad. I don't know if he's I don't know if Atlanta has another player that has the skill set and the ability to play in the kinds of positions in central midfield that Darlington Nagbe does. So he's going to be very important for Atlanta United. I think that the team probably recognizes that. When I say the team, I don't mean his teammates. I mean like the coaching staff and the front office. So it's good to hear that this has kind of been settled. I'm still a little bit unclear as to whether there was some kind of like disagreement and they came to some sort of resolution, or if this was never as big a deal as we thought it was. But regardless, it will be good to have him back in the team and in the fold.
Costa Rica comes up on Thursday, Herediano. And what are the keys for you looking forward to this from an Atlanta United perspective? What does Atlanta have to do to go down and get a result?
It's hard to say because we haven't seen this team play in a real game. Like, we haven't seen this team. A lot of us haven't seen Herediano play either. But I think, we kind of know generally how this team is going to perform well, and that is to be getting Ezequiel Barco and Pity Martinez in as much space as they can. And it will be interesting to see, because I wouldn't be surprised to see Herediano really sitting deep and really parking the bus. And that can be a tough thing for a new team, a team that is coming together under a new coach to deal with. When the spaces aren't there, it becomes even more important to have those little neural networks going between players, those little relationships that develop through having played with each other over time. And fortunately, these players have played with each other and they have that natural partnership with one another. So I would expect Atlanta to still get a result. Herediano is obviously, you guys have discussed, they've not been in great form. Atlanta has looked pretty good in what we've seen of preseason. So I think that they'll be okay. I can't say specifically like what I think like the key to the game will be, but I think it's going to be a struggle. I think it's probably going to be an uglier match than a lot of fans want to see. Having not seen Atlanta United play a competitive match in a couple months, they want to see a beautiful game where Atlanta goes out and scores 4 or 5 goals. And it looks great. I don't think it's going to necessarily look that way, but I think that they will have just enough to get a result. It's just a matter of attrition.
And one of the other guys that I wanted to get into a bit of a discussion with you, since you were discussing everything up front with PT and Barco and Joseph, is Breck Shea. And we know that his experience is probably going to come in handy more often than not because of everything that Atlanta United has going on this year. From his introduction to now, what have been some of your, takeaways from seeing Breck Shea as a part of the Atlanta United roster?
Yeah, I've been extremely impressed with him. He's looked like a player who has his head down, wants to work hard. He's, from what I've seen in training, he's extremely competitive, which fits in very well with this group. And I can actually understand why that competitiveness wouldn't necessarily fit in well with certain teams that kind of have a certain attitude, a certain mindset in training. And he clearly wants to win. He wants to perform well. And I think he's just going to be so important. I feel like I feel so conflicted, or not conflicted, but it feels strange to me whenever we talk about Breck Shea, because he's a player that obviously a lot of fans around the league and in Atlanta have these preconceptions about, and expect him to play and possibly generally behave on the pitch in a certain way. And, I don't think that's quite fair to him. And I think that we need to see what he does here. And I think that he's going to perform very well here. It really feels like this is a good, fresh start for him. I think he really enjoys playing with these players and playing in this kind of system. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how he progresses and kind of how he battles with George Bello, because obviously fans want to see George Bello on the field, right? He's a local kid, super young, potentially a national team player still a teenager. But Breck Shea is going to make George Bello a better professional by making him compete for those minutes. And Breck Shea is not going to make it easy on him. I think Breck Shea is going to get a lot more playing time than a lot of people think. I just think he's a phenomenal athlete. He's clearly good at soccer, which is a kind of a prerequisite to be doing all of this. But yeah, I expect big things from Breck Shea, to be perfectly honest. I don't want to put handcuffs on what I think he can do, because I think he can be an influential member of this team, like the kind of player that people maybe not like a star like a Joseph or a Pitti, but he can turn himself into like a player we can all agree is in this Atlanta United's best 11.
How important is Thursday to you in the grand scheme of things? It's the first leg of 2. It's on the road. It is your first competitive match. How important is a strong result and or a strong performance in that grand scheme of the 2019 season for Atlanta?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Thursday is very important for this club. I don't think it's important because of the result. I think it's important to have this trip and kind of have this very weird fixture that everybody or most players and the coaches are not going, it's not totally familiar, or everybody's not totally familiar with it. And I think that's really good for the team cohesion, the team bonding. I think that it can, this kind of a trip can really bring a team together, and things need to go well on the pitch as well. But as long as they get a decent result, I think that, even if they don't, they can still have this experience that none of them have had before as a group. And I think that can really bring them together, and it can be a really important moment that can kind of propel them through this, early part of the season when things aren't as, things are a little fresh, they're a little new, they're a little different under a new manager. And I think that this can be an opportunity for them to really grab hold of the season and of this competition, specifically in CONCACAF Champions League, and really, give them some momentum going forward.
And we talked about it also earlier in the show, and Jason was kind of wanting my look-see as to what else was going on with the MLS teams that are in CONCACAF Champions League, and looking at Toronto and looking at Houston. We were looking at those two, and I said that honestly that this might be a chance for Toronto to stub their toe because of everything going on. And I think we had more faith in Kansas City and Houston than we do in Toronto coming out of the blocks. When you look at the other matchups, especially the ones tonight, what do you see?
Yeah, I was listening into that last segment, and I had to agree with you, John. I think that's a good call about Toronto. I think that they're definitely a candidate to stub their toe there. And more broadly on Toronto, I think that this is going to be a really interesting year to watch Toronto and to watch specifically Greg Vanney manage this team, because I think that this is going to be a year that really kind of tests his mettle on how he can bring this group together. A group that no longer has one of the best players in the league in Sebastian Giovinco. So I think this is, it's going to be a tough season for them. They have the talent. They have, a roster that can do good things, and I believe they still have some room to maneuver to even add to the squad if I'm correct about that. But I think Vanney's been the kind of coach where a lot of people around the league, myself included, haven't been quite sold on him, because he's had all these players on these huge salaries, and he's generally, when they've done well, they've had a huge disparity of talent, and they still have talent, but he's going to have to prove that he can bring it together in a different way. So I'm really interested to see what happens. I think it's a tough draw for every domestic team here, and I kind of include Toronto in that. But I think you have to say Toronto and Sporting Kansas City kind of have the best chances to move out, based on the fact that if they both advance past the first round, they play each other and not one of these giant Mexican teams. Although Sporting Kansas City does play Toluca in the first round. So I think that they probably have the best draws. I think it's really tough. Honestly, for Atlanta United, it's a tough draw. Having, Herediano is okay, whatever. But then in the next round, you're probably getting Monterrey, and that is a extremely tough team to have to play against, especially when it's your first opportunity in this competition. So I think it's generally a tough draw, but I will definitely be wanting to keep my eye on Toronto in this one, kind of just see what they do against Independiente.
Yeah, an update from John Molinaro with Sportsnet in Canada. Josie Altidore did not make the trip with Toronto FC. He will hopefully be available for next week's second leg and in the MLS season opener, but he didn't make the trip. Toussaint Ricketts is no longer with the team. Terrence Boyd steps straight into the starting lineup tonight for Toronto in Panama. That's what you're dealing with the Reds at the moment. Houston's the other game tonight. Before we go, Joe, what do you think about Houston in 2019?
What do I think about Houston? Well, the pundits seem to love them. I'm not sold. I'm never quite sold on Houston. The thing about Houston, just in my experience, has been they're the kind of team that can look absolutely amazing and win 4-0 against anybody, against the best team, on the continent, on any given night, and they could also lose 4-0 against a team that they should be beating. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see how their form progresses in this tournament. I would expect them to advance past this first round. But again, things are going to get tough for them if they have to go up against Tigres in the second round. It's going to be very difficult for Houston. But then again, like I said, you never know when Houston's going to show up. And sometimes in those games against the big teams, that's when they can really, use some of their fast wingers and their explosive attack to take teams apart a bit. And that's where they can get some space and allow their attacking players to flourish. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. I think they probably do have, I think they will be, like I said, I think they'll be fine in the first round. But yeah, it's for me, it's always a wait and see approach with Houston. I never know what to expect from them.
If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, go over to Dirty South Soccer and read about Joe's Waffle House visit with Roger Bennett. That was an awesome piece. Anything that you left out of that you would like to share just about hanging out with Roger? Seemed like a really good dude.
Yeah, he was great. The whole 21 Savage thing when he pulled his little printed face out of his breast pocket in the green room there. I told him it would be funny, but I was then terrified afterwards. I knew right away afterwards what it would be used for, and I was like, oh no, everybody's gonna hate it. And there are certain Atlanta United staff members that I was talking to after this that could see my worry and fretting that I was doing before he came on stage. But no, it was great. Like he didn't have to do any of that. And what I wanted to get across in the piece was that, he didn't have to make time for me. Like he had plenty of stuff going on. He was filming other stuff. I don't want to say exactly what it was in case it's a secret project or something. I don't want to spill any beans, but he was filming something else before that. During the day, he was busy all day, and then he was clearly tired, but at the end of the night, but he still wanted to do this story with me. So I really appreciated him taking the time. He didn't need to do it, and I'll tell you a couple other stories about it, but I don't want to say them on air.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
he seems like a guy who is completely smitten with soccer in the South through the prism of Atlanta United.
Well, that was the thing. So he wanted to know about me. He wanted to know how Atlanta United had affected me personally. Like he wanted to know. He's like, so, do you do this full time? He's like, I want to know. And he started telling stories about the people that he'd met, that the game had changed, not just in Atlanta or in America. He talked about some guy from like the Bournemouth paper who at first it was kind of a part-time gig, writing a column for for the local newspaper about him, and now Bournemouth's a Premier League team, and he's in the press box every week doing all kinds of media, and he just loves those stories. And I think that part of the reason is because that's kind of what's happened to him. He kind of wasn't always full time in this, and now he's a huge, big deal as a media entity, and I think he just really enjoys that. And he really, it's about the people for him, not the sport itself, but it's about kind of the people that the sport is affecting.
Awesome. Joe Patrick, Dirty South Soccer. Make sure you're following him, J.A. Patrick 200, Dirty South Sock on Twitter. Joe's heading up to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground to speak to Frank DeBoer and players who are available for media today. Make sure you're following him for updates.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and
Joe.
we'll have an update on Darlington Nagby after we talk to Frank DeBoer today.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it this morning.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you guys later.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back to wrap up hour number 1 after this.
Today's show is presented by ATLUTD Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, February 19th edition. Final segment, hour number 1. Jason Longshore, John Nelson here with you this morning. Wanted to share this quote from Matias Almeida, the new manager of the San Jose Earthquakes. They had a preseason match with LAFC, and in his media availability afterwards, he talked about that match, talked about the issues that they faced when they went to Reno and had to, I think he said 7 or 8 hours of travel from their preseason base at Cancun. They struggled in the match. Much better against LAFC. But it was his quote about the league at the end that I thought was critical. And I think it shows a changing mindset of how people view the league when they get here and even from the outside. The question was MLS and who doesn't value the league. And he said, whoever thinks that way is wrong. I always say that to speak about different places, different leagues, is better if you live them from the inside. There are people who think as if this league still is the same league of its first years. But today, this league is more organized than any other in the world. Here, everything promised, everything signed is fulfilled. Here, you are treated as another human being, not as a star, and that is something beautiful that this league has. Then, for me, who just arrived, there is something very particular, and is that before the beginning of the competition, we're 2-3 weeks to start, nobody knows who the favorite is to win it. In Spain, you always know it. In England, you know it. In Italy, you know it. In Mexico, there are 4 or 5 that are always there. Here, you never know what could happen. And I believe that the players now are choosing to come to this league, and the coaches too. The league knows that they want to be one of the best in the world in 12 or 15 years, and I have no doubt that they will achieve it. big statements out of Matias Almeida about that. And I think the last part about not knowing who the favorites are going in, that's changing a bit, I think, as the league does spend more money, and I think teams who are doing it correctly are starting to separate themselves a bit. But yeah, in terms of the teams that make the playoffs, we've said it all preseason. Outside of the first 3 in the East and outside of maybe the first 3-4 in the West, it's a crapshoot. I think San Jose can make the playoffs. I think Colorado could make the playoffs. I think Orlando could make the playoffs. There are so many openings right now in this league to get into the postseason, and then once you get into the postseason, anything can happen. You don't have that probably anywhere else in the world, and that's a good thing for this league.
No doubt. And, when you have new managers come in, new coaches come in, and they see this, and it's refreshing on a bunch of different levels. And when you have a Matias Almeida come in and say these kinds of things as the season is starting, I think it's cool to get that new perspective from someone who has been a success in other leagues and other levels, to sit there and say these kind of things coming into a season. And it speaks a lot about what he is seeing in a very short period of time. It speaks a lot about the growth of MLS and what it's been able to do over the last little while to get to this point. And when you have owners and teams that want to invest, and you have someone like Almeida sit there and say, okay, you don't know who the favorite is. You just, as long as you do you, investing takes different forms. And it's different in different places, but the results end up being the same, where you have a lot of different teams working toward the same goals. And to have, for me, the bottom line, as you were speaking that, it's refreshing to have someone like an Almeida say those kinds of things coming into his first MLS season, to talk about where the league was, or to where the league is, considering we knew where the league was.
Yeah, it's the same thing we talk about with the new teams not having the baggage of surviving the early days of the league. And I think that perception is still part of it. And I think that attitude still permeates within the league and some of the people who cover it, that, it's CONCACAF. Teams have always struggled playing in CONCACAF. Well, the past is the past. Now teams should not be struggling. A Toronto, even without Jose Altidore, even with Giovinco gone, should go in as the favorites against Panama and not be worried about stubbing their toe. But that's the conversation, because that's what it's always been. I think Almeida looks at it with a fresh set of eyes, and he realizes that, hey, this league is very special. It is a great league, and it's going to get even better. Embrace it. Don't be afraid of that. Don't be scared of that fact. This is a good thing. So hopefully we start to see more folks like Tata Martino say it's a very competitive league, Matias Almeida, more players, more managers come in and talk about this league in a very open way. I hope that maybe people who have been, through things with Major League Soccer from the beginning and have watched the struggles can appreciate these comments and realize that maybe it's a little bit of a new era for MLS going forward. Let's take a break. Let's come back for hour number 2. We'll have Nick Alifi join us for a bit as well. We'll get caught up on some of the soccer over there and what's going on with the Icardis, which really needs to be a reality show, soap opera. I don't know. I don't know if you need writers for it. I think they're writing it themselves. It's pretty ridiculous. But we'll get caught up with Nick on his thoughts on that and his thoughts on CONCACAF Champions League in hour number 2. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus, and Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, February 19th, a couple days away from Atlanta United taking the field for the first time competitively in 2019. CONCACAF Champions League starts for the Five Stripes on Thursday. It starts for Toronto and Houston tonight. So if you have questions about how Yahoo Sports is going to work, how Univision Deportes is going to look, you'll get a chance to see 7 games in CONCACAF Champions League over tonight, tomorrow, and at 8 o'clock on Thursday before Atlanta United takes the field. Also, you'll be able to listen to us on 92.9 The Game. Mike Conti and I are heading down to Costa Rica tomorrow. We'll get down there in time for training session at, I believe it's at the stadium. There will be a press conference that CONCACAF organizes as well. That'll be tomorrow, late afternoon, early evening. I'm assuming it's not open to the public. I know the media availability is, and I don't think the training session is either. So team's heading down tomorrow as well, and we'll train and come back right after the match. It's honestly being treated like a traditional match on the road. You know, it's a little bit less than a trip out to the West Coast in terms of time. It's about 3:45 in the air, I think, down there, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So what? That's right. Like a trip to Utah, to Colorado.
Yeah, I would say mileage-wise, yeah, because Toronto is usually a 2 or, slightly more than that. Chicago's a 2. So let's just say, Denver or Salt Lake City.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a trip, but it's not, I think, crazy travel. So they're treating it like a normal match. You get in the night before. They're going to have an early evening training session, and then play, and then come back, and then get ready for leg 2. So Shiva had a question based off Felipe's article. I thought it was a great piece. Felipe had a chance to talk to Michael Parkhurst over at The Athletic and talked a little bit about philosophy and culture and how things are different with Frank de Boer. Shiva had a question, should we expect to see LGP and Escobar not as high up the field as we saw under Tata? And this is based around the defensive responsibilities. I think we all have a tendency to look at these situations and these comments kind of out of context. When you're playing in these matches, the game is not rigid, and you're going to work on things like the defensive responsibility and shape and this and that, but every match presents different challenges, and players have to make decisions. This is not like you see in other sports where you can call a timeout, readjust, regroup, done. Players have to make the decisions on the fly, and sometimes that difficult decision might pop up after 40 minutes of action on the field, after the last time you had a chance to talk to your manager. So the training is important, but I don't see Frank de Boer telling Leandro Gonzalez Pirez, Franco Escobar, you can't go over this line. You can only go over this line X amount of times. These types of things, that's not how it's going to go down. They're going to be, I think in this first leg especially, they're going to be a little more careful, especially early, to feel this match out. You know, it's different when you're going to face DC United in a couple of weeks, and they have, outside of Lucas Rodriguez coming in, Yamil Assad going out, it's roughly the same group. You have video, you have film, you're going to have preseason games to look at. You're going to know how they play. Herediano, you're going to have some film. You're going to be able to watch some things, but you haven't played against this team. You don't have that memory of it. So you're going to be a little more careful, I think, early, till you feel out what they're going to do. And the reason I would say this to Shiva and anybody else asking it, because Shiva's not the only one, should we expect to see LGP and Escobar not as high up the field as we saw under Tata? It's impossible to answer, because if Herediano decides, you know what, we're going to sit back, we're going to sit deep, we're not scoring a lot of goals right now, we're going to play for set pieces, we're going to play direct, we're going to get numbers behind the ball, it would be pointless for LGP, not Escobar on Thursday, but Parkhurst or whoever, Gressel, Shea, Bello, your defenders in your line of 5/3. If Herediano is going to sit back and give you space, it'd be pointless not to take it. So, and honestly, John, I mean, I think that's how they've played generally. You don't see Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez making crazy runs when there's no space to make them. When he would get forward, it was because the opposition dropped deep. I think that will continue. I don't think anything changes with that.
No, I think that you're not going to force a situation. Just because you think you can do something doesn't mean it's something you should do. And
you didn't before.
I've always, yeah.
I mean, let's be real about this, because I think a lot of times we still go back to Atlanta United was a pressing team under Tata Martino, and it was not. Go back and watch 2018. Go back and look at some of the pressing numbers. Total Football has always done a great job of looking at forced turnovers and these types of things, forced possessions lost. Atlanta United did not press in 2018 in the same way they did in 2017 at all. And as 2018 went on, they pressed even less and less and less and less. So you didn't see these guys playing up super high, chasing everything, except when the space was there to take.
And I'm of the mindset of, if the space is there, if they're giving you the space, what are you going to sit there and say no?
Some teams would. And I think those are bad teams. I think if you have to play the match that's in front of you. And LGP is a player who is talented on the ball. He's a player who, I think generally when he gets forward, he makes good decisions. Go back to the opening goal in the MLS Cup final. Portland was sitting pretty deep. This was after a couple of matches where Atlanta United was on more of the back foot and absorbing pressure. Portland sat deep. So Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez makes a run down the left side, creates an opportunity. It turns over. Then Michael Parkhurst jumps forward and makes a tackle that leads to the opening goal. The space was there to take, and he took it, and it created good things. I think that continues. I think that absolutely continues. I'm not expecting any differences there.
No, I'm not either. And it's take advantage of the situation and the information that's in front of you, and take that information. And if it lends itself to sitting there saying, okay, don't try to press through a brick wall, because all it does is hurt your head. Don't do anything silly. Don't sit there and turn a situation where you have possession and can build something. Don't try to force building something, because the building could fall down, and then, that's bad when buildings fall down. So it's just take what's given to you, see what's in front of you, take advantage of opportunities that are larger than what you're seeing in the present tense. So that, for me, it's just take advantage of what's in front of you. Don't force anything. That's how I look at it.
And they weren't doing that before, though. That's the key. This was not a team that was playing recklessly honestly, since midway through 2017. The press was even adjusting a little bit as 17 went on. The biggest difference that I think you can look at in terms of what we know so far is the way you want to get forward in possession. It's gradual. It is you work the ball forward to work your players forward. You don't just start making crazy runs off the ball out of the back. You work possession forward to where, okay, you have the other team pinned back. There's space for Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez to step up higher here and play next to Remedi and Lorenowitz because there's nobody there. Cool, take it. But you have to work your possession to get your players into position. It's kind of like chess. You want to make your moves to get your players where you want them to be able to control the match. And that's going to be the key here. So don't get caught up in where they are on the field and if that's good or bad. It's all about making sure you have numerical superiority all over the field. And those are the decisions that are going to have to be made here. So if the other team's keeping two forwards up high at all times, it's going to be harder for Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez to step forward because there's going to be 2v3. You want 2v3. You're good with that defensively. You don't want to leave that. If you're able to work possession forward to pin the other team back, one of those forwards drops deeper, okay, you can step up a little bit higher because then you have space to recover into. These are the things to look at. I think it's easy sometimes to kind of go back and say, well, players do exactly what the manager tells them to in every match. They fit a philosophy, and they play roughly the way the manager wants them to, but they have to make their decisions on the field, on the fly, in the run of the game, and you have to give them the tactical knowledge, the idea of the team concept to do that. Do you want them running everywhere? No, and you weren't doing that under Tata anyway. You want to do it in a controlled manner, but to say that they won't step forward, I would disagree with that. I think they will. I think they're gonna want to create those opportunities. Question from Christopher Abel on a Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. Christopher asks, what would you say the main differences are between MLS playoff matches and CONCACAF Champions League matches? John, what to you makes a match CONCACAF-y?
And I was getting into this discussion yesterday about the adjective itself. And I was explaining to someone who's not a person who follows the sport about how things can get CONCACAF-y. It is taking a moment that could be one thing or another, and it's blown out of proportion. It's taken to the extreme. If there's a foul as the hourglass is drifting toward 90, if you're like 75, 80, 90, and there's a foul in a heated environment where the crowd is behind you, and instead of it being just a whistle and a talking to, you get a card, and it's normally red. If there's added time that you're sitting there and thinking, okay, it might be 2 or 3, and it ends up being 7 or 8. For no real reason that anyone can put their hands on. It is the histrionics, and I'll use that word, when it comes to activity on the pitch for me. It's when an individual decides to milk a challenge. And once again, I'll use that verb. It's, for me, when you sit there and it's a hard tackle, but then someone decides that they were looking at video of the Seattle Fish Market and decided that they wanted to model that for their fall, and it turns into another event. So one event leads to another, which eventually makes it CONCACAF. So for me, it's a lot that's based on emotion, and the ability to control your emotions keeps things from being CONCACAF, but I don't think that that's always the case. And a lot of it is tied to officiating one way or the other and how the officials respond to activity that happens in front of them.
Just like you got to play the match that's in front of you, you have to do the same with the referees. You have to adjust to the way they're going to call it. And that's the biggest difference to me. I think the intensity is the same as a playoff match. The way the referees handle it is different. because referees are trained differently. You do get some referees in CONCACAF that are just not up to the same level. But go back to the way we talked about Jair Marufo, Mark Geiger calling the games in the postseason and how they let a lot more go and they let the play breathe more. That was different than the regular season where they were very involved. They were kind of in your face at times with the way they handled a match. That's a very English, European style of refereeing. Look at how matches are generally refereed in Liga MX and in Central America. Referees just culturally are different. They're trained differently. They are a little more accustomed to players speaking to them a lot more. Doesn't bother them as much. The only thing you look for in these, for me, is consistency. I don't care how a referee handles it as long as they're consistent from minute 1 to minute 90. And if they do that, if they allow more talking, if they understand that, hey, this team's going to look to accentuate here, they're going to dive here, I don't care, we're just going to keep playing, fine, cool with that, all cool with it. But it is a different style of refereeing. That can be a shock to the system. I don't think it will be as much of a shock to the system to Atlanta United because of the player background that they have. You have a lot of players from South America. You have a lot of players who have played in these leagues and these types of competitions, and it's not going to be as shocking to see a referee handle things in this way. I think, honestly, the shock could have been more the other way when they first came to MLS and the way referees handled it. So I think they'll be able to manage the situation better than a lot of MLS teams have. Yeah. I think a lot of times people use the word CONCACAF to mean, a bad field, which is a general preconception. Not going to be the case for Atlanta and Herediano. Panama, it's a turf field as well, although Sportsnet said it's a bad turf field. I don't know. We'll have to see about that. Herediano, I've seen matches played on that surface. It looks to be a traditional turf field. It looks to play that way. I think it'll be just fine for Atlanta. So sometimes conditions are CONCACAF-y. Sometimes the way referees handle games are CONCACAF-y. Sometimes the histrionics, as John said, are CONCACAF-y. You're going to get all of those things. I think Atlanta United is going to shrug them off. I honestly don't see them having an effect. You saw more of an effect with some MLS teams that were very U.S. or European player roster-centric because it is a different way of approaching a match from a referee and from an opponent perspective. In this one, I don't think it's going to be that different for Atlanta United. I think they'll honestly probably do some of the same things. If they feel like they can take advantage of them, they will, because it's all about winning the game, period. Whatever it takes to get the result, that's what this is about. That's maybe the biggest difference between a regular season game and this, but you get to postseason in MLS, it's very similar to this. And Atlanta United going through a challenging postseason campaign last year will only help them as they get ready for CONCACAF. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's get Nick Alifi on the line. We'll see what he thinks CONCACAF means, and we'll talk a little bit about soccer over there as well. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by ATLUTD Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. February 19th edition of the show. It's Tuesday Thoughts. We'll get into more of your Tuesday thoughts on Twitter at Soccer Down here in just a bit. Nick Alifi from Soccer Over There crashing the party, though. What's up, Nick?
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Doing good. We need your definition of CONCACAF or CONCACAF-ness, or you just got CONCACAF'd. What does that mean?
Right. So CONCACAF, in my opinion, is a complete distortion of space-time, right? So we need like Neil deGrasse Tyson to come on and really do a deep dive on the effects of space-time. But if you have, let's say we go to added time and it's 3 minutes. Well, if you're watching a CONCACAF game, that 3 minutes suddenly becomes like 7. And there's no explanation for it. You can watch, there's no red cards, no penalties, no kind of gratuitous injuries, no reason for this at all. But 3 minutes will suddenly become 7. It makes no sense at all. Magical fouls will appear out of nowhere. It's like soccer produced by Vince McMahon.
Okay. I'm down with that. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, where is the pigeon? I don't see the pigeon. I honestly do not see the pigeon.
Okay, John,
we were told.
I'm going to have to explain something again to you. We were off air when we were talking about pigeons on NYC's Kids. So everybody listening was just like, what? What is John talking about? Has he lost it? Has he completely lost it? He's looking for a pigeon.
Yeah,
Jason, I've
called
the home. I've called the home, Jason. I got a spot for him. We're good.
All right, good, because I was a little baffled there. I think everybody listening was too. NYCFC has released their new kits, and they have embraced the pigeon name, and it is on the kits. There's a little tag. Go to MLS Twitter or my Twitter, because I just retweeted it, and they have it blown up to see the pigeon.
It's on the left hip.
Yes, but John, you should probably sometimes explain what's going on, because I was confused too, and I was there for the conversation earlier.
All right, and getting back into Soccer Over There, how does a team end up with only 7/8 players, all under the age of 19, and one of them being a captain for a day, and then losing your Series C status?
Yeah, so Series C, as we talked about in the very, very early days of Soccer Over There, when it was essentially me crashing your show, soccer, Series C is Thunderdome. There's no other way around it. There's no money. There's very few rules. The people who own the teams typically are local guys who are forced into it because they're the richest guys in town. And sometimes they care, sometimes they don't. And in this case, when you have Pro Piacenza, they had a series of bounce checks. When you don't have checks that are cashing, you have players that are walking. And as a result, they had to forfeit a series of games. They forfeited 3 in a row. If they forfeited a 4th, that would mean that your license would be revoked by the federation. And instead, they say, well, we'll try out a minimal effort roster and at least just keep our sanctioning. Well, that didn't go over well with the federation after the 20-0 loss, and they still ended up getting it yanked. So this is why you ended up fielding 7 teenagers and having a teenager manage the team. And it's absolutely sad and buffoonish, and my heart goes out to those kids because, and like I said last night on Soccer Over There's Hot Drop, you went out on your shield. And I think that's all you can do as a team in that situation. You have these kids that if I'm another team president, I'm looking at those kids and I'm saying, that's a kid who I want on my team. And I don't care if it's Virtus Entella or Siracusa or another one of these City C squads. Let's get some of these kids over here and give them a shot at a career, because they did. They went out on their shield. They went out like warriors. So good for them.
All right, here's my question after your hot drop. What's the latest in as the Icardi turns? I mean, where are we with this? Because if I'm not mistaken from my glances at social media, I think just in the last 24 hours, or maybe a little bit longer, we've seen Wanda crying on Italian TV. We've seen the club wish him a happy birthday on Twitter. We've seen her post a picture of what looks like pictures of them burning in a fire on her Instagram. And now a claim that unless he's given the armband back, he'll never play for the club again? Is all that, that's actually just in the last day and a half?
Yeah. And look, you can say a lot of things about Serie A, but it's never boring because it is an absolute soap opera. And we've said this from minute one. And the Icardis are really showcasing what we mean by that. And Wanda Icardi, for those who aren't spun up on this, is Mauro Icardi's wife, agent, and main mouthpiece. So she's not just an agent, but she's also a television personality as well. The downside of wearing this, all of these hats is that when she tries to do what most agents do in creating leverage for her client, it comes across as being petulant. And, when she's doing the theatrics and she is crying and then when she does things like burning a picture, which some people said is some kind of Argentine tradition for a birthday. I've talked to, a couple of people from Argentina. They say, we know nothing about that. So this is a situation where they want an extension with Inter, but they want him to be one of the highest paid players in Serie A, like right up there with Ronaldo. That's not going to happen. Beppe Marotta, who came over from Juve, who is now the president of the club, he's a person who booted Alessandro Del Piero from Juve, who is a club legend. He's the one who told Gigi Buffon either retire a hero or walk. He has no problems putting the club before players. So I don't think Wanda really understands what she's working with here, because Beppe says, hey, look, happy birthday tomorrow. We wish him the best. Tanti auguri, whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to work your contract stuff out behind closed doors, and Wanda has to choose what hat she wants to wear here. She can be the wife and the agent. Great. Do a great job with that. But you can't be wife, agent, and provocateur on TV. And as long as she keeps insisting on doing all this, it's going to keep being a soap opera. I do not see him with Inter after the summer. I just don't see it happening. I think there's, her car is being pelted with rocks and bricks as a result of this, which I think is way overboard. But, she just needs to step back, focus on the contract. If they can get it done, great. But telling your team, if you don't hand him the captain's armband back, he'll never play for you again. It's one thing to do that if the team's losing without you, but they won their last 3. So you really are losing leverage by the day. So just sign the contract and shut up, or sit tight, sit out, focus on your fitness, and then look forward to the next team you can go to.
Nani to Orlando City. Is this Jermaine Defoe 2.0, or is this something where fans of the purple team can have a little hope when it comes to their offense?
Look, I said this last night. I think it's something where I was so wrong on Wayne Rooney that I'm hedging my bets here. I believe that if he comes in and he takes the road of, you know what, I've won, I've seen success, I'm going to drag this team kicking and screaming across the line like Wayne Rooney did for DC, it can be a game changer for them. If he comes in and he says, I'm here to collect a check, he's still better than 90% of that roster. So he's still going to have a dramatic effect. He still has pace. He can still work the ball. And for people who say, oh, it's a dumpster fire, whatever, Nick doesn't know what he's talking about, it's crazy. Please prove me wrong. Tell me who else on that roster it can keep up with 9 right now. And yes, he has had a series of teams where he bounced from Man U, Sporting, Fenerbahce, Valencia, Lazio, Sporting again, and now to Orlando. But if he can keep his head screwed on straight, they're a playoff team. And if somebody wants to disagree, feel free to disagree. But don't be shocked when Orlando's hovering right around that playoff line come the end of the season. I think it's a great signing for them. It's one that they need to do. Teams like Atlanta can find young South American talent or young talent, develop them, and then sell them overseas. That's fine and great. You can win championships doing that. But I think Orlando, DC, they have to have a sort of a fixed point to start with. And so when you have that Wayne Rooney signing or that Zlatan for LA, Nani for Orlando City, I think it works. And that's what they need to do right now. And now you can focus on bringing in some younger talent around him and then start building that model. But you have to have ground zero somewhere, and this is ground zero for them.
Yeah, that last part's the key. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense if you just go sign older players who have names. If that's just what you're doing, I don't think that works anymore in the league. If you're using that as a jump-off point, and they tried to do it with Kaká, it didn't work. I don't think anything you can really blame Kaká for. Maybe his legs went just a little bit faster than you thought they might.
Yeah.
But you also didn't surround him with a whole lot of talent, and you had the whole, okay, we're going to eject on Adrian Heath really quickly type of thing that just it didn't all fit. You had some behind-the-scenes issues, too, in Orlando, if you know about their ownership situation, that did not help any of that. So,
yeah.
Orlando, I think it's kind of starting over again, and Nani is a similar type of signing as it was with Kaká. Not quite as big of a name, but a guy who go back and watch Nani and read about Nani from the 2016 European Championships. I thought he really put the team on his back and was able to lead them to the title. With Ronaldo injured, I thought Nani was the focal point for Portugal, and I didn't know if he still had that in him. So if he's able to give you any of that, I think he could be really important here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people automatically go, Nani, because
it is
because people expected him to be the heir apparent to Cristiano Ronaldo, and just say that statement again in your mind, the heir apparent to Cristiano Ronaldo, and realize how heavy of an expectation that is, and not just for a player of any nationality to be following, but a fellow Portuguese player. The expectations were absurd for him. So to see him succeed is something where we have that baseline and say, okay, he can do it. He's not a career knucklehead who are now asking to come in and be a hero. He's not an Antonio Cassano who's an absolute psychopath who you then say, hey, bring this team along. No, that's not the case for him. He has a history of success. If he can come in and provide some leadership in that locker room, even if it's quiet leadership, and just say, hey, I've won, follow me, watch how this is done, it could be beneficial to them. I don't think this is a dumpster fire signing as everyone keeps trotting it out to be. And I think that we tend to pile, the clown car full with Orlando City. But if you just take a step back and reduce the hate a little bit and look at this objectively, this could be a great signing for them, but it is a boom or bust deal. It's either going to be tremendously successful or it's going to be an abject failure. I really don't see too much in between on this.
All right, one more, John, before you jump in here. Our buddy El Mataflo has chimed in and says, I think Maxi Lopez got the best result of the Wanda saga. The whole situation is difficult for all parties, but she cray.
Oh, yeah, no. She's 100% nuts. She's 100% nuts. Yeah, a great call, yes. Maxi really ended up on the winning end of that deal.
Yeah,
but,
so for those who don't know, explain that reference here.
Maxi Lopez and Wanda were married. They have kids together. And then
they have 2 kids, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3 kids. And they said, essentially, one day Maxi says, look, I think you're cheating on me. I hear things. And Wanda says, no. She takes him to court, and they end up finding that because she reverses it and says that Maxi was cheating on her. Again, the soap opera. And it comes to find out, she ends up getting married to Mauro Icardi, Maxi's really good friend, right after their divorce. So they had a what they called the Wanda Derby in Serie A when Inter ended up playing. I want to say it was Sampdoria, and they wouldn't shake hands like when they go past line. You could see Maxey just drop his hand, and Mario just kind of has to like, oh, okay, all right, and keeps it moving. So they called it the Wanda Derby. It really was absolutely hilarious to watch play out. And it was a large part of the reason, allegedly, why Mauro Icardi was not included with Argentina's national team for a while. And why people were screaming, oh, but he's so good, he's so good. Yeah, but you don't just get Mauro Icardi, you get the circus along with him. So that's sort of the background, the quick down and dirty of that particular story.
Syria.
I love it so much. I love it. You can say whatever you want about the product on the field, but it is always a soap opera off the field.
3:00 Eastern time today, we have the champions going at it. Lyon, Barca, and then Liverpool, Bayern Munich. What do you think about today's activity in the Champions League?
I think Lyon is dangerous. They've, any team that gets to the round of 16, you're starting to take a little bit more seriously. But I think Barcelona is going to get out of there. Liverpool, to me, is the team to watch out of all of this, because if they can keep it together and keep that machine rolling, then they will be A-okay. But there's something about them lately that causes me to take pause. And I know that there's a lot of Liverpool fans out there. I'm not knocking your team. I'm not saying that they're going to, quote unquote, Liverpool this thing. But Liverpool, Bayern, that's the game to me that is like, everyone stop what you're doing and see what's happening here. I think that game's going to end up in a draw, but I think Liverpool will somehow squeak through before it's all said and done.
All right, and before we go, Nick, thoughts on CONCACAF and Champions League and Atlanta United Thursday?
Atlanta United, to me, from everything I've seen in the preseason, they look like they're humming on all cylinders. I think that, with a new coaching staff and again, Felipe Cardenas, with his exceptional writing with The Athletic, really brought this into view where you have a new management team coming in. It really, it reduces the complacency level for a champion when you have something like that, and a seamless transition in power. I think Atlanta is going to be the team to beat in this CONCACAF Champions League. I'm not saying that is just an Atlanta United fan, but when you look at the depth and you look at their bench and who they can trot off for the bench, then you start realizing that the situation is completely different than Toronto last year. And when you start factoring that in, to me, it just seems like Atlanta, if you can just keep mentally in the game, they are the team to beat.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah,
Go ahead, John.
yeah. No, I was just going to say, then you look at the other teams from MLS that are a part of it. And we've been getting Joe Patrick's opinions about Toronto, Sporting, and Houston. And are you going to be in the majority opinion still when it comes to Toronto, where it could be a stub your toe moment, or what are you looking at for the other MLS sides?
I think Toronto comes crashing to earth like a piece of space junk, to be honest with you.
Toronto is Skylab in your mind?
Yeah, Toronto Skylab. It's one thing for a team and PR to come out and say, yes, we're still competitive. Yes, we will compete. We want championships, blah, 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 blah. But when you start losing a certain amount of talent out of a locker room, the players are going to look at each other and understand what the deal is. Players are not stupid. Agents are not stupid. And whenever they see talent leaving and not a ton of talent coming back in, that screams rebuild. And there are some players who are okay with rebuilds, and there are some who say, I want to chase silverware. So what do I need to do to get myself out of this situation and try to find a team where I can get that silverware? It causes cultural problems. It causes issues in the will. How much am I going to put on the line to help keep this club afloat if I think I'm going to be the next player out the door? So, yes, I think Toronto is Skylab. They're going to come crashing to earth in a big ball of fire. And this could be an absolutely horrific year for them. I don't see a lot of good things happening for Toronto. Sorry.
We'll see if Greg Vanney can ride it out and get anything out of it. But they have a winnable series, and the talk now out of Canada and their pursuit of Alejandro Pozuelo Dwayne Rollins reported yesterday that the latest offer from Toronto is for Pozuelo to finish the season with Genk in Belgium. They have playoffs. So what Toronto has now proposed is that he would finish the season, not the playoffs. Toronto would still pay the €8 million, which is the release clause. He'd miss the first couple of weeks of the MLS season in this scenario. It's where it stands at this point. We'll see if it gets done. We'll see if Toronto gets that talent coming back in, because as they're currently constructed, I would agree with you completely, Nick. I think they're going to struggle. They get Pozuelo, maybe they struggle in CONCACAF. Maybe they right the ship in the second half of the season. I think the rest of the talent is good enough to be a contender in the East, but they need that star. And Pozuelo would have a lot to live up to if he comes in, but they have to get somebody, because I don't think they can go in with what they have and be competitive. What more with Nick next week on Soccer Over There? Maybe a hot drop this week. Maybe we can talk him into another hot drop.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
All right. If you have topic suggestions, go ahead and hit him up at Sock Over There on Twitter with your thoughts. Nick, thanks for hopping in. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, we're going to go to break. We'll be back with more of your Tuesday thoughts after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Tuesday Thoughts edition of SDH. We want to hear from you guys out there listening. What are your Tuesday thoughts? John, this one's for you. Jason Davies says, will be interesting to see if Bayern can keep up with Liverpool's pace up front. Mo Salah at plus 350 to score 2 or more goals might be worth a little bet. Ooh. That's a little too rich for my blood.
That's a little too, nope. I'm just, more than anything, I've been concerned over the last little while about the overall health of the Liverpool roster. And it seems like they're being run into the ground, and then you have key injuries at the back. And yes, Salah is an amazing talent. Sadio Mane has been keeping me above water in fantasy league, but it's just you're running the same guys out there each and every time, and I just wonder how much Liverpool really has left in the tank across all competitions, because now you're getting the calls out there that Liverpool needs to focus on winning the Premier League and should just not worry about Champions League right now. And with what Manchester City is able to do on a on a competition by competition basis. They're hanging in there, and they're turning it into a fight to the end. So my money is still on Manchester City. I never bet, so that tells you how confident I am about those kinds of things. I've seen Liverpool stumble over the last month, and I think it's going to catch up with them.
Yeah, this is a really tricky spot for them because Manchester City, if they win the league, it's a huge shock after the way things went. They can go after everything, and whatever trophies they win, I think Champions League is the one that they're going to focus on the most. If they get anything out of league, cool, it's a bonus. Liverpool, it's been how long since they've won a league title? I mean, they've never won the Premier League title, but going back to the old First Division, early 90s? Late 80s before the Premier League launched. So I think that has a little extra meaning for them because of that long drought.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're looking at Super Cup 85-86, First Division title in the Football League was 89-90.
Yeah, 90. I thought they'd got into the 90s with one. So, I mean, that is a bigger trophy, I think, to Liverpool at the moment. So there is a bit of a question in Champions League. Do you think a little more about league? We'll see what they do lineup-wise. It'll be interesting. I'm not going to lie. I don't have UEFA Champions League fever. I have CCL fever. I'm far more interested in what's going on in Guatemala tonight, Panama tonight, Costa Rica tonight with Tigres and Saprissa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm more interested in those than what's going on over in Europe. Sorry. I guess that doesn't make me a good soccer fan at the moment. Robert Swick with a point. The example of something being CONCACAF, Mexico-Panama 2015 Gold Cup. That's a different kind of CONCACAF. CONCACAF-ness can take on a lot of different shapes. That one, that was Mark Geiger in the middle. So you didn't have the CONCACAF-ness traditionally of the way the game was refereed. The way I think American fans would look at a referee's performance in that. I think Panama would have definitely thought they got CONCACAF'd with the way Geiger called that. I thought he had a couple really just poor calls in that game that set everything off. That was my take on that. It went to a place that was awful and didn't need to go with things being thrown on the field in huge numbers. And the way everything was handled by everybody. I mean, it was both sets of fans, which was mostly Mexican fans at the Georgia Dome. It was the way teams acted. It was the way the game was managed. I really look back at that one as the way Geiger handled the match is what led it down that path.
You look at a red card in the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
Panama goes up 1-0, playing with 10.
And gets tons of stuff thrown at them.
Yep. Then a handball called by Geiger when Roman Torres falls on the ball. Guardado gets a penalty. Was it 90 plus 10?
Something like that. Well, and the plus 10 was because of the arguing and everything that happened around it.
Yeah.
So let's be clear about that. The call was not made at 90 plus 10. The penalty was taken at 90 plus 10. That's a very important thing to clarify.
Yeah. So, and then Guardado wins the game with another penalty in extra time on a call that wasn't as hotly contested by everybody. But yeah, I think that when you look at, a call being made, stuff being thrown, and then Panamanian team poses with a banner after the match calling CONCACAF corruptos ladrones.
Yes, corrupt thieves. Well, they kind of felt like they got robbed. That red and the handball late were incredibly dodgy decisions in a Gold Cup semifinal.
And then you have the president of CONCACAF saying that Geiger acknowledged making mistakes during that Gold Cup semi.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
didn't say what the errors were, nevertheless.
There's two layers to this, and it depends on how you want to look at the game. CONCACAF-ness in this situation, to me, is different than when games are played in Central America and some of the things that happen there. I think it's two different levels of CONCACAF-iness. In this one, put yourself in Panama's boots. You are in a competition where you've watched the earlier game, the favored U.S. get defeated by Jamaica. You're looking at potentially making a Gold Cup final against Jamaica and winning your first Gold Cup. And you're right there. And you get a red card. You score a goal. You're 1-0 the whole way through until I think just a frankly awful penalty is called against you and you concede. I understand the blow up on the Panama side. I do. It's unfortunate the way it was handled, the way everything went. Yeah. You don't want to see that. But do you understand it? I do. I get it. That's the passion of it, and that's maybe some of the differences in general of the way the game is approached. I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. I think you have to be cognizant of the whole situation, and you have to understand the meaning of the game in different cultures. It is different. Flat out, it's different. The stuff being thrown on the field from the Mexican fans in this one, I had a huge problem with, and this was a recurring issue throughout that tournament in multiple venues, and it was just kind of swept under the rug. That's something that CONCACAF has to get stronger with as an organization, and we haven't seen as much of it since. But that was not the only time in the Gold Cup, that tournament, that Mexican fans threw things on the field and acted badly. That's another different level of CONCACAF-iness. So this was... I get the nomination about it being CONCACAF-y. I think it's very different than what Atlanta United will face in Costa Rica on Thursday.
And Josh Eisenberg maintains that the Gold Cup game was more a matter of getting geigered than it being CONCACAF-y.
Yeah, I agree. I think the CONCACAF-iness was definitely the Mexican fans' reaction to going down 1-0 to Panama with 10 men. That Mexican team did not play well in that tournament at all. They struggled. They struggled in a big way, but they still won the thing, partially because Jurgen Klinsmann couldn't beat Jamaica on U.S. soil, which is embarrassing. And that would have been when I would have let Klinsmann go. A lot of talk about Klinsmann in the last couple of days because of the buyout that was reported in the financials by U.S. Soccer. Just over $3.3 million. That's why you don't sign the guy to a new contract before the 2014 World Cup even happens, and you don't give him a 4-year deal. That's why you don't see a lot of those kinds of deals around the world, because I think people are shocked about the buyout number. He had a contract. He was fired. It was guaranteed. He was going to be paid. No real surprises here.
And there's also the discussion about him being linked to another job here, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, those have been refuted by lots of different people. A random reporter that I had not seen before, was not well known, popped up with a report that he was hearing Jurgen Klinsmann's in the running for the Inter Miami job. I think Taylor Twellman came out fairly quickly and said, nope, not what I'm hearing, and it's kind of faded away. So back to the silly season, and make sure you know your sources and you're keeping up with who's saying what before you jump to conclusions. It'd be very interesting. I don't know if it'd necessarily be good, because these are the things you always wonder. We'll leave it here before we go to break to finish things out. Jurgen Klinsmann was long sought after by Sunil Gulati to be the manager of the U.S. men's national team. I mean, it was something he tried to get before he hired Bob Bradley. Immediately when he had the chance to fire Bradley, he did. He hires Klinsmann. He gets it done. He's all excited. Jurgen Klinsmann has had 3 managerial jobs in his career. He managed Germany through the 2006 World Cup, finished 3rd on German soil with a team that maybe was a bit of a surprise, but it's still 3rd in Germany when you're hosting it. In the grand scheme of things, that's not where Germany should normally be. I think now, in hindsight, you're giving a lot of credit to Yogi Löw with that team. Klinsmann was kind of the figurehead of it. Okay? Then he goes to Bayern a few years later. Was it 2009? It's about 3 years after his World Cup run. Didn't make it through a season. Did not see the season out. And go ask Lam about his season at Bayern with Klinsmann. Go ask some of the other players and some of the things they've said very vocally about it. Not good. Then he comes to the U.S., and he qualifies for a World Cup, but he doesn't make it to a Gold Cup final in 2015. He loses in the semis to Jamaica on U.S. soil for the first time ever. He starts out 0-2 in the Hex after complications in – he had complications in the semifinal round both times around. He won some big friendlies, but that's it. And he hasn't been hired by anybody. That's the thing you have to point back to now, is the fact that no one was beating down his door after the Bayern situation, except for U.S. Soccer. Then they gave him a new deal before the World Cup that he was hired to see them through. And I thought he had a bad World Cup in 2014. I mean, they were as defensive and as negative as we've seen U.S. Soccer, honestly, since the 90 World Cup. When you look at the numbers in terms of chances created, possession, passes in the final third, anything to show any kind of proactive soccer that Klinsmann preached, it wasn't there. So he gets another 4 years, and it's just horrible. From the start of that Gold Cup campaign in 15 on, it was bad. And he hasn't been hired by anybody. If he was so good, you would think his name would be mentioned a lot as a candidate for jobs, and it just isn't. I think it'd be a bad decision by Inter Miami if they went down that road. And according to experts who came out after that initial tweet made the rounds, yeah, it doesn't look like that's something that's going to happen. I would be pretty surprised. I think Inter Miami can do a whole lot better than Jurgen Klinsmann, because nobody else has hired him either after the U.S. fired him. So not really in demand. Yeah, that should should tell you a lot about where he stands right now. Let's take our final break, come back and wrap everything up on a Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. If you have any final thoughts, share them with us on Twitter at @SoccerDownHere. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by ATLUTD Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Final segment, Soccer Down Here, Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. To recap kind of everything for the week, tomorrow we will not have a normal show because I'll be on a plane. John will already be in Costa Rica. He's flying out tonight. I will be on a plane. Mike Conti and I will check in with a on-the-road edition. Not a normal time slot. We don't know what that time's going to be just yet. We'll give you a heads up. of about 30 minutes to an hour before we go live. We'll probably go live for 30, 45 minutes. We'll probably take a lot of questions as well. So stay tuned on social media for what that looks like. We'll be on the road in Costa Rica as we get down there. The team will train in Costa Rica tomorrow. They're training today at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground at Marietta. Training in Costa Rica tomorrow. There will be a press conference in Costa Rica ahead of the match tomorrow evening. Thursday will be a normal show, normal time slot, live from Costa Rica. Friday, stay tuned at the moment. I think it will be a normal show and a normal time slot. It depends on if I am awake and what time we land after getting back after the match. So more than likely, it will be a normal show. But stay tuned and please be understanding if it's not, if I'm like asleep and my eyes are rolled back in my head.
Or dead.
Well, hopefully not that. That would be bad.
Yeah, it would be, but in the sense of awareness.
Well, yeah, that's a figurative dead, not literal dead.
Yes. No.
Yeah, that would be bad
Yes.
times.
State of awareness, because, I mean, if the match starts at 10 Eastern, ends at midnight, probably means that you're hopping on a plane at San Jose Airport close to 2 or 2:30 in the morning, getting back in time for a Waffle House breakfast Friday morning, and it's going to depend.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and take a guess that it might be at least a 10 o'clock start, just to be safe in terms of getting back and getting everything set up and getting some kind of caffeine and food in me. So stay tuned for that. Other stuff, stoppage time will be today, facebook.com/929thegame. Myself, Jimmy, Mike will get you ready for Erdiano and everything going into that. I've retweeted it as well. You can ask some questions ahead of time. You can ask some questions live. So join us this afternoon for some stoppage time. Broadcast on 92.9 The Game will be live at 9:30 on Thursday for 30 minutes of pre-match coverage. Match will kick off at just about 10 o'clock, maybe slightly after 10. We'll have the match for you. We'll have a very quick wrap after the match. We will not have a full hour of post-game coverage because there's a plane that has to be caught so we can get back home. So we will not have that for you. We'll try to throw something up on social media or at least do like a Q&A or something as we're heading back to the airport. There's so many questions with this. It's not a normal trip in terms of cellular coverage and what kind of ability to connect we're going to have. We have about 3 or 4 different plans depending on how things go with calling the game on Thursday. So we're prepared. Yes. We're ready. We have backup plans. We have the emergency glass ready to be busted if we have to do that. It's going to be an adventure, but it's going to be Atlanta United's first experience in CONCACAF Champions League, and I can't wait to see it firsthand.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. You know, I've already seen friends of the show who are posting on social media that they are in airports in various places heading down to Costa Rica. Last thing I heard once again is that there are over somewhere between 100 and 150 Atlanta United supporters going down for this because it's a special moment and fans have no bounds when it comes to Atlanta United. It is absolutely clear, and it's going to be a hoot.
Percy Herrera is questioning Atlanta United's EMLS results. I do not know my EMLS rankings. And I think probably you're looking at the league trying to figure out what that is. You know, it's such a new thing in terms of, okay, this guy is good at this level, this guy's good at this level. What does that look like on a nationwide basis? I think it's going to take some competitions before you know.
We need to ask Kevin Egan.
Where. Kevin Egan's calling it, which is pretty cool. Kevin Egan, Stephen Keel, Susanna Collins are calling these. So I think it's a cool new thing. It's very interesting, and I want to see how it grows. But in terms of who's good, who isn't, I think it's going to take some time just to know, like, okay, what is the level of competition? What does that mean? So Give the Atlanta United's representative a little bit of time, Percy. Have some patience. We got to see where this level falls out to be because I don't know, honestly. 4-card late to the show. What's the latest on Nagby? The reports from Rob Usry, Dirty South Soccer, from Christian Dyer of The Athletic, are that things have been worked out and Nagby will remain with Atlanta United in 2019. Frank DeBoer will be speaking to the media later today, so make sure you're following all of the usual suspects for updates. I know Doug Robertson is there. I know Joe Patrick will be there. I believe Felipe Cardenas will be there as well. So make sure you're following everybody for anything from Frank DeBoer about it. I would assume he would be asked, considering this broke and considering it's a big story.
I've heard.
A little bit. There's been a little bit of conversation about it. So we will keep you posted on everything that we see and how that's said. I would not expect that he would be slotted straight back into the lineup for Thursday, but to be available off the bench, considering he has been training, would make a lot of sense, and he gives you the ability to change up a few different things. So I think you'll probably go into Thursday with a very similar setup to what we've seen, I'd say, consistently in the preseason. For me, the biggest question is it George Bello or is it Breck Shea on the left? Because we've seen both with what we would say is the first-choice group at the moment. So I'm leaning towards Breck because of the experience on the road, and maybe Bello in the second leg.
Yeah, and I was thinking you want to come out of the blocks with some experience back there, so I was leaning toward Breck Shea as well. And just once again, looking forward to seeing what the layout's going to be for Kennesaw in a little over a week's time, because that place is going to be crammed, jammed, loudy, and rowed, and it's going to be fun for the second leg.
Tafka asks about the 17s failing to qualify for the Top Generation Adidas division. He says it's about individual development, but does this indicate our youth aren't as dominant as we thought? Is it because we graduated our best players forward early and left a talent vacuum? There's a big part of that last part of it, because I believe Bello would still be age eligible for this U17 Generation Adidas tournament. I watched him last year at Generation Adidas qualifying take over matches as a left back, which is absurd, but that happened. So if he was in this group, I would think he would be doing the same. He's not. It is about the individual development. Is the youth as dominant? You can't take, and this is something that I think we always do on a regular basis with everything, you can't take one isolated result and extrapolate it to mean big picture things like youth not being as dominant as we thought. One tournament, let's see what happens over the long haul. I think you have to look for the number of homegrowns that have signed in 2 seasons. Nobody else has done that in this league. The talent that played from the academy in USL last year, second most to Seattle in terms of academy players and minutes played in USL. These are big picture things that show the growth of this. One tournament, I don't think shows it. I lean a lot towards the latter about if you had some of these best players still with the U17s, you'd see some different results. But would that be best for that player's development? No, I don't think so. You also see some players playing up in age group as well. In maybe some 17 eligible guys are playing up with the 19s in Development Academy. Didn't play as part of this group. It's all about the big picture. It's not about individual tournaments for the academy. So don't get too worried about it. If this happens over an extended period of time, then it's a different conversation. One time, I wouldn't jump to conclusions. Ricky Ricardo and John, your thoughts on this one. Since the games are at the same time, and Ricky will probably switch back and forth anyway, which game would you recommend to watch more of for whatever reason between Saprissa Tigres and Toronto Independiente tonight?
Ooh. Probably because it's in the same part of the bracket, the same half of the bracket, I would say Toronto and Independiente. But knowing me, if I was in Office SDH, I would have the TV on one and the computer on the other. But just because it's in the same half of the bracket, I'd go with Toronto.
Yeah, you might be getting in time to catch the second half of the Houston-Guastatoya match, maybe. Yeah, no, I think you'd be able to catch the second half. Yeah, Customs, you have to see how that goes. I'm going to start with the Toronto game, and that'll be my default. I'll flip over and see what's going on in the other, but my focal point will be Toronto because I want to see what they look like, and more from an MLS perspective as a whole. One final one, Michael Ruiz asked about the latest with 4 designated players with the Galaxy. They still have them. And now Orlando has 4 designated players as well, although it looks like they could buy down Kleshin or Dwyer easily. That's a different situation. I mean, there's no reason to buy a player down from a designated player spot until you have to, because you might not have to, and then you could use that TAM in a different way. Now Orlando has to. So how much TAM, how much GAM do they want to use to buy down Kleshin or Dwyer? That's the only question for them. So they're easy. LA, I don't know. We haven't heard any updates. Everybody got quiet with the meeting that happened over the weekend. No leaks, which makes you wonder, any shenanigans afoot?
Oh, I'm always 100% negative until there's something that proves me different.
I don't know.
I'm at 100% shenanigan level until somebody tells me differently.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll be back tomorrow. Or no, we won't be back tomorrow in a normal slot. We'll try to catch up with John at some point, depending on what's going on and when Mike and I can actually broadcast something live. We're going to try to do it live. If we have to record something and post it, we will. We're going to try to avoid that. But it all depends on connectivity and travel and everything going on. So stay tuned to our social media at Soccer Down Here. We'll all be on the ground in Costa Rica tomorrow and reporting live. And Thursday will be a normal show. Friday, stay tuned. It's going to be hectic CONCACAF fever, y'all. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to get down there and cover this. This is a big deal. And as Wakatata Flame says, he's having a hard time telling people who are new to the team, new to the league, new to the sport, why this is more important than the start of the league. It's the first time. And it's an opportunity to win a trophy that no MLS team has. And it's an opportunity to go to the FIFA Club World Cup, which no MLS team has. And put MLS on another platform.
3 favorites.
You're one of the 3 favorites in the tournament. It's Atlanta, it's Monterrey, it's Tigres, according to most. Santos Laguna is next. And if you're going to position yourself as one of the top teams in the hemisphere, you have to compete in these types of competitions and do well. And Atlanta United now has that ahead of them on Thursday against a team that is veteran-laden, against a team that has struggled so far this season, and against a team that has a very proud history of doing well in this competition. They're known as giant killers. They would love nothing more to fix their season that has been a failure so far than to knock Atlanta out and to move on. Atlanta has to take care of business, and there is pressure on this, and it is a big deal, and it's going to be a lot of fun/worry/ pressure / all of the above. It has a postseason feel to start the season. That's different. It's going to be fun. But we'll be in Costa Rica tomorrow. We'll have something for you at some point. Stay tuned. That's all I got. That's the best I can do. Talk to y'all tomorrow. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha CONCACAF, y'all.